Hello, hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. We are currently live over on YouTube right now. For some reason, it's not letting me connect on Facebook. So I'm trying to do that right now, but it's lost connection with Facebook. So if my team is watching this, if you want to share this video into the Facebook group, and let them know that we are doing Power in Numbers live over here, please do, because here, let me see. Now, let me see if it's going to let me connect. Always fun with technology, everyone. You don't know until you start whether it's going to work or not. So I hope everybody's well. It is currently Wednesday. Okay, I think it's now on Facebook too. So if you're on Facebook and you're watching this, please let me know so that I can know if it's working or not. So I think we are currently live on YouTube and Facebook. It is February the 26th. This is Power in Numbers live for the month of February. So we do this at the end of every single month. And this is my way to actually be live with y'all and to talk about things that are really topical. So of course, I'm always putting out YouTube content that's kind of more evergreen typically. But this is a way to talk about things that are happening now. So within Power in Numbers live, we are always talking about news, to-dos, and cues. And that is what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to talk about current news that's going on that you need to know as a small business owner that is happening currently in February to stay informed. Then we're going to talk about to-dos. What should you be doing right now, especially related to small business finance, right? There is no shortage of things. And then also we're going to take your questions. So we did get a lot of questions submitted this week, so I'm excited to go through those. All right. Well, first of all, if you have questions, I'm going to let my team put the link to ask your questions into the comments. So if you have questions for the next Power in Numbers live, we do have a way for you to submit those questions. And so definitely make sure to do that. Or if you're watching any of my content at any point in time and you have additional follow-up questions, the best thing to do in order to get my personal take on things is to submit those questions. We actually don't get a ton of them, so you have a good chance of your question being submitted. So if you're on YouTube, you're going to go over and go to jamietroll.com/YouTube. That's where you can submit your questions for the Q's part of Power in Numbers Live. And then we have a similar link that is for those of you who are watching on Facebook. Okay. All right. So let's talk about some news. The big news this week that many of you have probably heard about because I've been trying to talk about it. I sent it in the newsletter. I made a video on it, but BOI, beneficial ownership information, that is the new regulation that has been part of the Corporate Transparency Act that has been kind of this on again, off again, on again. So it was on earlier last year, then a judge blocked it, then a court stayed it, then another judge blocked it, then that got stayed. It's been just like head spinning as to whether we need to do this. So what this form is it's really all about trying to gather information necessary to root out fraud. So things like money laundering, things like that. So this is done by FinCEN, which is really overseeing kind of fraud in the government from the standpoint of how people might use shell corporations to get, to move money around or money launder or different things like that. So for the vast majority of us, this is not super impactful. It literally takes like 2 or 3 minutes to go through the process to do the form. But I know some people have been hesitant to do it just because, why do something if you're not required to? Why do we want to give this information? I will say, this is not different than any information really that you've already given to create an LLC. This is really related to pass-through entities. So if you're an S Corp, if you're an LLC, if you are a multi-member or single-member LLC, then this probably applies to you and you should be filing one of these BOI forms for each entity that you have, okay? I do have a full walkthrough on how to do it. It came out last week. I talk a little bit more about what has changed. The new deadline is March 21st, 2025. And I do believe that this deadline will stick. And the reason that I believe that this deadline will stick, and here's the information on that BOI filing. But the reason that I do believe that this information will stick, I need to go live on Facebook. Okay. Facebook, I'm now live over, over there too. So I think I'm finally reconnected. So sorry, Facebook, if you missed my preamble. We're just getting in to the news section this uh, of this Power Numbers Live. So we're talking about BOI filing. I did a whole video on this, on the beneficial ownership information filing last week. So this is the link to the video. Go watch this. I do a full walkthrough of how to file this. So if you've not done it, I want you to do that today. And the reason I think that the March 21st, this is the new deadline to file your BOI, the reason I think that it is going to stand is because of the fact that they're not even doing, there's still kind of appeals as to whether this is constitutional going on in the Texas court. However, they're not even starting oral arguments until March 25th. So there will not be, and then potentially if it got overturned, it may end up in the Supreme Court. So we've got a long time before this gets finalized. And as of right now, it is required. So I don't see that going away. If you just want to get it done and avoid potential for fines and penalties, there's a lot of clickbait going around, like you're going to be fined every single day if you don't do this. I think there will be, especially because of the back and forth, some relief. They even implied that for smaller business owners, they're looking at ways to make this easier. So I don't think March 22nd, they're going to start coming after businesses, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't go ahead and get it done anyway. Okay, so go watch my video all about BOI. I also talk about whether you should get a FinCEN ID or not in that video. So that was something that I wasn't sure about and did a little bit of research on. So go watch that to determine, do you need a FinCEN ID? And how do you fill out these BOI forms? We have more questions coming up in the Q's section of today. That will be, that I'll be taking some questions on BOI. So hopefully that is helpful. Okay, so let's see. Cool. Now I see people on Facebook too. Yay. Sorry, everybody. We had a little bit of a Facebook issue. Go figure. Yay, tech. But that's why we're always streaming in two places. So you can always find me over on YouTube if you can't find me on Facebook. All right. I forgot also to mention we have a sponsor today. Xero is our sponsor for today. If you were looking for QuickBooks alternatives, anything like that, Xero is absolutely great. I've actually been testing it. I actually moved from QuickBooks to Xero. I have a video documenting my process of moving from QuickBooks Online to Xero. Yes, I'm currently still using both of them, but I'm really loving what I'm seeing in Xero so far. And I think it's been a really great alternative for those of you who, for one reason or another, are not interested in using QuickBooks Online, but you want something that has robust functionality. I think Xero is a great option for you. So go check it out. I have thank you, Danielle is reading my mind. I have a 90% off right now for 6 months. That offer can change. So, but it's a great offer. I mean, 90% off for 6 months. You kind of can't beat that. So you can go try it out and see if you like it. But we are loving Xero so far, and it feels very intuitive. So thanks, Xero, for sponsoring today's Power in Numbers Live. Okay, let's see. So what other news do we have today? We're going to talk about here in a minute the tax cuts that are being talked about and how they could affect you as a small business owner. But before we get to that, I want to really quickly talk about a survey that came out that I found really interesting. So there was a small business survey that the NFIB did. I've done some webinars for the NFIB. It's a great organization. But they did a survey, and we'll go ahead and share that. There's an AP News article. I'll actually go ahead and share it on screen so y'all can see it too. Here we go. Ignore the ads, but it's talking about small business uncertainty. And I found this really interesting. As of right now, this month, it talked about how the uncertainty index in rows, this is the NFIB's small business uncertainty index, rose by 14 points in January. And it's now the third highest recorded reading that they've ever had. So there's a lot of uncertainty. So if you're feeling that, I just want you to know that it's not just you. There's a lot of uncertainty right now. People are wondering what is going to happen. We do not have a crystal ball to know. It just feels like there's a lot of, tenuousness. It talked a lot about One good thing is that optimism is still actually, fairly high. We did have a little bit of a fall in optimism in January, but it's still a pretty high number. So while there's uncertainty, there's also still optimism, but there has been a decline too in consumer confidence. So I know that affects us as small business owners as well. It's just good to know how people are feeling out there so that we can help in the best way possible. And a lot of that, if you read on in the article, and here we'll put the article up for y'all. So here's the link to that article. It's linked in your feed right now if you want to go take a look and read it. But it's really interesting because a lot of it, 18% said inflation is still hurting them quite a bit. Even though the rate of inflation has come down from where it was a couple of years ago, it still hurts, right? It takes a little while for that to actually get better. And then labor is still really big. Finding top talent is still hard for people. Hiring for open positions is difficult. So it isn't just you. It is not just you. It is a tough environment right now, but that doesn't mean that we aren't resilient. We can make it through. We've made it through worse. So remind yourself of that. Okay. So go check out that article. It's just good to kind of, understand what's going on, how people are feeling in the world, and to feel like you're not alone in all of this. I also want to talk a little bit about, and I'm going to try to do this as diplomatically as I possibly can, as I like to do, the tax cuts that are being debated right now. So if you have heard about this, you might have heard some headlines on things. The House did pass the new budget. Now it goes to the Senate, and there are some controversial things in there. I'm not going to talk about all of those things or my feelings on them because it's really not relevant to y'all. But I am going to talk about the potential impact for small business owners. So let's talk about what is in there related to small business. And one of the things that is in there is the extension of the qualified business income deduction. So if nothing is passed, so the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was passed in 2017, the first Trump administration. There's a lot in there. There's a lot of talk about, who it helps. Does it, disproportionately help wealthier people? I have thoughts and feelings, but I'm not going to go into them all here. But where it relates to small business owners, the qualified business income deduction has reduced the tax burden on a lot of these smaller business owners and some bigger business owners as well through the QBI deduction. So that's a 20% of your business income deduction that you get. And I do think there's been some positive things from it. There's also, it's complicated deduction. It's not easy to calculate, but it is likely something, if you're a small business owner that makes a profit, it has probably reduced the taxes that you pay. And it really is for pass-through entities. So if you're an S corporation, LLC, sole proprietor, it can really help you reduce your tax bill. And if it doesn't get extended, then it will expire at the end of this year. So that's just something to be aware of. I talk a lot about QBI, specifically when we are talking about whether it makes sense to be an S Corp or an LLC. There are some considerations about QBI to put in there. The calculation gets a lot simpler if QBI goes away. So we don't know what's going to happen yet. I think that piece is what I gather is that that's not the most contentious side of it. I do think there is opportunity there if they wanted to cap it. So for right now, QBI is capped. It phases out at higher income levels if you are what's called an SSTB. So that's a specified service trade or business. It really applies to accountants, lawyers, anyone who is like, if you're, the main service provider for your business, it will cap out at a certain point. I think it's in the, couple $100,000. It will cap out your benefit. However, while it phases out, it doesn't phase out entirely for other businesses. And that's because the purpose was really to spur capital investment. So they want to give these tax cuts to these companies that will spur capital investment. And so I still think there's probably room to cap some of that as well. And I think that could help fix the view, especially when it comes to QBI, of it being most beneficial for wealthier people. I think there is a potential fix there, but it's not part of what's being proposed right now. Now, the Senate's probably going to do their own things with it and take a look at things, but that's just one of the many things in there. It also is reducing, tax rates for the, highest earners in the U.S., what that top end tax rate is. There's a lot that is in this bill. So in general, it is, tax cuts, but there does seem to be, a favoring to higher income earners. It's less likely that lower income earners will see a lot from it, with the exception of small business owners and the QBI deduction. So that's one that I am hoping that regardless of what happens, they keep something of the sort in there, because it is providing tax relief to small business owners. I'd be totally fine with them capping it. But I do think that that is something that is beneficial and does help to spur small business, which we want to continue to do. So we'll see what happens, but there's a lot in these tax cuts. But I am watching closely because it does have a fairly significant impact. If a lot of that expires, we go back to tax situations circa 2016. So it's just good to keep an eye on this. I also think that's part of where some of the uncertainty may be coming from, right? Uncertainty in what your tax bill is going to be. We don't know. We have no idea where this is going to land. So we'll have to wait and see, which is my least favorite phrase to say, but it's true in this instance. So just be paying attention. Again, it goes to the Senate now to debate. There's also a lot of other stuff in the bill. So go read on your favorite news site, and then go read about it on your least favorite news site. I do that all of the time because I want to see both sides of issues and understand what each side is saying about things, and then go try to find one that you find to be in the middle, and just see what the differing opinions are and what the different points are that are being made. That's my recommendation. That's all I'm going to say there. Okay. Let's see. So I think that's all the news I had for today. Like I said, we're going to get to BOI more in the Q&A section of today. So let's move on to... And I'm really sad because I forgot to do that with my news section. I forgot my sparkly transition. I just got so excited about talking about BOI. Okay, so speaking of BOI, our favorite thing to talk about, one of your to-dos, if you have not filed it, if you're an LC, S Corp, if you are a official partnership, meaning you've actually, created a limited partnership, right? You probably need to file your BOI if you haven't already. There's been lots of questions about how often do I need to update it, and do I need to file if this or if that. I'm going to get to some of those questions in the at the end of this show in our Q's space, but more than likely, this is something you have to file if you haven't done it already. If you've already done it, you're good, right? If you've done it for any entities that you have, you're good unless something changes. But if not, your deadline is March 21st. So I'm going to go ahead and share this video again. Well, first of all, here's where you go. Go to this. This is where you go fill it out. Please don't pay somebody to do this for you. It takes 2 minutes. And what they're charging you for is not the work. They're charging you for the risk involved, right? Because if an accountant fills this out for you and something changes, there's risk to them involved as a paid preparer, or if the information isn't true. So they're going to charge you probably minimum of a couple $100 to do this. It literally takes less than 5 minutes. You can go watch my video, do it yourself. You don't need somebody to do this for you. There will be, if you go search BOI forms, I am sure there are any number of paid services that will try to get you to pay them to basically for you to give the same information that you would put directly on the form. So just go directly here and fill it out. Okay. That is my word to the wise. It's the same thing with EINs and things like that. People that, advertise these services and they charge you $250 to get an EIN. And then they ask you the same questions, and then they just go to the free government website and put the answers in and get you that EIN. It's crazy, but they make lots of money because they're really good at Google search. They show up before the official, government website in Google search. So look for the .gov, right? FinCEN.gov, not .com. /BOI is where you want to go. And if you need a walkthrough of how to fill it out. I did a full walkthrough. I actually walk you through. I filled out my own and filmed it because that's what I do. And so you can actually see me filling out and going through the process myself. Okay. All right. Yeah, they're really good at that. They spend a lot of money on SEOifying things so that their websites will show up first. It actually makes me want to come over here and try it. Hang on, I'm going to try it really quickly. We're going to do this in real time. BOI filing. Let's see what comes up. Yep. I'll show you guys. Hang on. Here, I just did like a quick Google search. And like I said, what you're going to see when you search this, you'll see what comes up is boirregistration.org. That's a nice try. There's a .org. We've got a boir.com. We've got another boir.org. They're also paying for these. Oh, look, it is actually the first official, the first non-sponsored. So skip the sponsored, go to the first official BOI filing if you're going to search for it. But there are lots of other ones that come up that are not officially .org. So just that's typically, I would almost always ignore the sponsored ones, especially when you're looking for something specifically government related. Okay. All right. What else should you be doing now? Other than filing your BOI report, which hopefully you do today and get it done and, check that box. You can also right now make sure you have found your tax preparer, right? If you have not found and locked in who's going to be preparing your taxes for this year, you're probably going to get put on extension, which isn't such a bad thing if you do get put on extension, but we are at the end of February and, most qualified tax preparers are booking up. So go and find yourself a qualified tax preparer who can help you. If you don't have one already, make sure you've got your books in order as much as you can. Again, bookkeepers are slammed right now. So if you don't have a bookkeeper yet, it might be tough to find one. They exist out there, but you might have to go on tax extension. So just be aware of that. If you do end up filing an extension, mind you, March 15th is the deadline for your S Corp return. So if you are an S corporation, if you were in 2024, your 1120S, or if you're a partnership and you file a 1065, March 15th is the deadline to file those. If you are not going to get that done, yeah, exactly. Jackie, exactly. And if you need help, Jackie is a great person to reach out to. Her information is on my preferred vendors page on my website. And extensions are not a bad thing. They are not a bad thing, but you do have to pay. So that's the important thing. When you file an extension, especially when you're filing an extension for your personal return, you are filing an extension to file, but not to pay, meaning you can still have interest and penalties if you have underpayment, right? So if you know that you're probably going to owe taxes, you need to make an estimated payment so that you don't run into more interest and penalties. I think a lot of people, there's a lot of confusion with people about they filed an extension and then they're wondering why, they're getting interest and penalties. And it's because of the fact that the extension is just to file your taxes, but not to pay them. All right. That's just my little spiel for now. So go find yourself a bookkeeper if you don't have one. Go and here's if you want to find Jackie and some of our other preferred vendors, you can go check them out. I have no idea if they have any availability at all right now, but that's one place you can start. And so make sure that you have done that. And if you do need to file an extension, if you're not going to make that 1120S or that partnership return, I have a video walkthrough how to step-by-step file a free, again, you don't have to pay somebody to do this. You can, but I show you how to do a free tax extension for your 1120S or 1065. And remember, you don't pay taxes when you file those reports anyway. The taxes, because they're pass-through entities, you don't pay taxes until your April 15th personal return is due. So you can just file a extension. It will give you through September 15th. So we'll go ahead and grab that. I think I put that. Here we go. Yep. Here's the video link that Danielle has put below that she is sharing. So go ahead and watch that walkthrough for how to file that free extension. I'm a big fan of free. I don't know about y'all. It doesn't take long and it's free. So go ahead and take care of that. And honestly, even if you're not sure Like sometimes I just file an extension just because I'm afraid I'm going to forget to file the extension and I'm not sure if I'm going to get it in. It's not a problem. If you file the extension, but then you make the deadline, great. Awesome. It doesn't hurt you, right? So it never hurts to file an extension, even if you don't end up needing it at the end of the day. It can just give you a little bit more like peace of mind, and then you're not worried that you're going to forget it. Okay. All right. So I think that's most of the to-dos. Oh, the other thing important for to-dos. I mentioned March 15th is the deadline for filing your 1120S if you were an S Corp last year. But if you're thinking about this year, potentially electing S Corp, okay, if you're an LLC, let's say, and you're thinking about electing S Corp for 2025, and you want that S Corp election to backdate to the beginning of the year, which I highly recommend, because let me just tell you, switching entities in the middle of a year is it's just an administrative nightmare to me. And just like it's an accounting nightmare. It's not fun. So I highly recommend, if you're switching entity types or switching tax elections, try to do it as of the beginning of a year. It matters less if you're moving from like a sole proprietor to an LLC, but if you're electing different tax treatment like S Corp, just backdate it back to January 1. And if you want to be able to do that, the deadline is March 15th. There are some ways you may be able to do it after that point, but the easiest way is to get it in by that March 15th deadline. If you are not sure, please, if you have not watched, has anybody here watched my S Corp Switch Masterclass? I have an encore version. You can go watch it. It will help you decide if making the switch is right for you this year, if it will save you on taxes to be an S Corp, all right, for 2025. So make sure to go to myjamietrull.com/switch, and you can watch it immediately or you can pick a time. Totally up to you, but it's an encore of the one that I did a couple of weeks ago talking about this topic, which was super popular. So definitely make sure to check that out if you haven't, and if it's something that you are interested in for this year. Okay. All right. So that is our to-dos section, which means I'm making good time today. We are moving on to, hold please, dramatic transition. Oops. Ah, wrong one. Hang on. Here we go. Dramatic. I love it so much. Okay. The Q section. So this is where I take your questions that are submitted. Like I said, I'm going to come scroll back up here and grab, if you have questions and you are over on YouTube, you can submit your questions for the next Power in Numbers Live, which will be at the end of March at jamietrull.com/YouTube. And then we also have a similar one for Facebook where, here it is. You can go to jamietrull.com/newsletter if you're watching this on Facebook, and submit your questions for the next Power Numbers Live. Pretty much all of our questions this time revolve around BOI. So I'm not surprised. That video, I got a quick video out last Friday that I edited myself because we didn't have time to go through our normal long process to get our content out. But you can go watch that BOI video. But there were questions on that video that were submitted, and I want to talk through some of those. So I'm going to grab the first question that we got submitted. Okay, this one was from Tammy. I'll put this up on screen. And it basically, here, we'll go through this. Oh my gosh, you can't see me. We'll just do this. Okay. So Tammy says, I watched the updated BOI video. She does bookkeeping for a partnership with 4 LLCs. Okay. And the partnership is owned by 2 partnerships. So this is where some of these questions get like really complicated, right? Around ownership structures. I'm assuming this requirement is for each federal ID number, which would mean the LLCs are not required to file. So what I would say here is, and again, I know you've read the website. Typically, if they have multiple separate LLCs, they will have multiple EINs. They should have an EIN for each of those LLCs, which would mean each of those LLCs is a reporting entity, right? So, and then the partnerships would be part of the beneficial owners. And this is part of what they're looking to understand, right? Because of these complex ownership structures, this is really what it's for. FinCEN cares less about your, single member LLC that you own 100% of, and nobody else is a beneficial owner of. They want to understand, okay, but who are the people that are really benefiting from this? So yes, it may be owned by partnerships, but who benefits from these LLCs? So in general, yes, each of them is going to be a reporting company, and they're going to want to know who is the ultimate person benefiting from this, regardless of just the ownership structure, right? Which is one thing. Who are the actual human beings that are the beneficial owners? And that helps them understand, like, okay, of all these different companies that are out there, there might be just a handful of people that have their hands in 150 different companies. And that helps them track money and understand, when things are changing hands or illegal activity is happening. I'm not saying that's what's happening with yours, because there's lots of valid reasons to have complicated entity structures. But that's the type of situation that they're going after. So yes, each one should have its own EIN, and each one should be filing its own BOI form. Now, what I would say is, for the owners of those companies, I recommend they each get a FinCEN ID. And the reason that I say that is FinCEN IDs, I talk about this in my video that I did, but it basically makes it so that, if you're going to have to file if you have multiple companies, get a FinCEN ID. It's free. Again, I walk you through how to do it on my website, but it makes it so that if anything changes, right, you don't have to go to each of those forms. Like if you move addresses personally, right, not your business, but you personally, and you have 5 different companies, well, you're going to have to go into 5 different BOI forms and update that, unless you have a FinCEN ID. And then you just update the FinCEN ID and it will automatically update your BOI forms. So that is what I recommend for anyone who has multiple companies or is thinking about having multiple companies. It also means that you don't have to reattach your driver's license on every single BOI form that you're filling out. You can just put your FinCEN ID in and you're done. So that's what I recommend. But in general, err towards doing more. That's what I would say, because it's really trying to get at these more complicated structures. Okay, hopefully that is helpful. Let's see. Okay, so this is a question from Vivian. And we got some questions via email as well, so I put some of those in here. Okay, Vivian asked, and I think this was a question via email. Do I need to file if I have an LLC but closed it in 2024? So currently a sole proprietor. So if you officially closed it, right? Like if it does not exist anymore from the standpoint of the IRS, right? If you've closed it out and it doesn't exist in your state, then you're good. You shouldn't have to do anything. Right now, if you just closed it and you haven't taken any actual official action to close it out, like with your state or anything like that, then you may have to do something. So look up what you would need to do in that case to actually officially close out the business in your state, because that's where people might have abandoned these. This is what I wonder what they're going to do with, right? There are going to be people that have abandoned EINs and LLCs out there that they're just not functioning. They don't have them anymore. They're not really using them anymore. But they never went through a process to close them out. And that you could get letters. I could see getting letters. I've gotten letters in the past for an old entity that I don't use anymore, and I didn't even realize. And so I had to kind of respond back. So there is typically going to be a formal process to follow. So I would look to make sure you've done that. But then if it's closed and not functioning anymore, you should not need to continue to file a BOI for it. Okay, let's see. I've gotten this question a lot. This specific one came from Felicia, but I've gotten this question quite a bit. So I'm going to put it up here. Am I correct in understanding this is a one-time filing requirement? It doesn't have to be filed every year. Yes, but it is a one-ish time. So yes, you file it one time, but if anything changes, you have to file it an update within 30 days. Meaning, what could change? So it could be personal information. It could be your address. Could be something about your personal information that you need to update, or it could be information about the business and especially who those beneficial owners are. You get a new owner. If there's somebody else who would qualify as a beneficial owner, they have lots of information on the website about who is a beneficial owner. So if you're not sure, then definitely check that out. So if that changes, you have 30 days to get those changes in. So it's just one of those things to kind of train ourselves that, yes, it's a one-time filing. You don't have to do it annually, at least not right now. But you don't want to forget about it completely, because if something changes, you may need to go in and update those. Okay. Which I'm sure we're all going to remember to do. Just positive. Oh, and I liked this one too. This was a comment from Joe on YouTube on this. What steps do you take to update the BOI when selling the business? So it depends on how the sale is structured. I'll say that. More than likely, like if you are selling the full business and they're retaining that EIN and you're not closing the company. So sometimes sales are structured where you're actually going to close out the company and maybe it's a sale of assets, right? So those assets are being purchased by another company, in which case you just close out the company and you don't have to do anything else official. But if you are selling the business and they're maintaining their EIN and everything, then yeah, you would have to go in and change those beneficial owners within 30 days. So again, if things change, if ownership structures change, you do have to remember to go in and update this. So that's where it can probably be helpful to have an accountant or bookkeeper, but it's good for you to know as well. But accountants and bookkeepers, if you're watching this, just recommending, not that you need to file it, but just reminding people if things change, right? Hey, make sure to go update your BOI on FinCEN. That's, I think, a really good thing that as practitioners we can do, even if we're not the ones actually doing it. I think that small business owners are going to need reminders about these types of things because they just fall off the radar screen, right? Like if I'm not out here shouting from the rooftops about, hey, you have a new, BOI forms are back on and you need to file them by March 21st, then you might completely forget that this whole entire thing exists. So you'll be like, I filed something at some point. I think I did it. Like I've done that a lot with all of these different requirements for filing. So, all right, everybody, that is it for today. I'll give one final shout out to Xero, our sponsor, just to say it is a great time to switch if you're thinking about a new accounting software for 2025. This could be a good time to do it. You can go ahead and backdate back to January 1st, close out in your old system, and then have all your new P&L and everything in your new system. I walk through how to move specifically from QuickBooks Online into Xero in a video that I did last month on the channel. So you can go to my YouTube channel and search for my content on Xero, and you should see more information about it. And then you can go sign up and get my special discount. It's 90% off for 6 months. Not bad, if I do say so myself. So thanks, Xero, for sponsoring this. And thanks, everybody, for being here. Submit your questions for the next BOI or next BOI Live, Power Numbers Live. Hopefully, we're done talking about BOI. That would be a win if next month I don't have to talk about BOI and changes happening. Let's just hope. Thanks, everybody, and I'll see you guys next time.